Hello, thank you again for tuning in to our video interview series where we take local faith-based entrepreneurs and investors here in Tulsa. Today, I have Dr. Kendrick Higo here. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. So tell us a little bit, who are you and what do you do?
I'm a chiropractor in mid-Tulsa. I moved here in 2020 from Oregon, and so relatively new to the city and just kind of getting to know people at church and enjoying time with family. So yeah, it's been enriching.
So tell me a little bit about how you landed in being a chiropractor.
Yeah, I wanted to be in the medical field when I went into undergrad. I was contemplating a few different options, including chiropractic, physical therapy, just general medicine, but I had the seed planted early on during that time, and I didn't really act on it until a little bit later after I started my personal training business in Canada. But I think God was sort of pointing me in that direction over time, over the course of years. And that ended up being, I think, the right decision for me. So I'm grateful that He's allowed me to practice here and to do something that I enjoy.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your approach. Would you say that you're like other chiropractors?
I think that the approach is a little bit different in the sense that we're focusing on getting people moving better and better outside the office without my help. We use chiropractic as sort of that jump start, and then we get the healing power of the body to kind of kick in. That's really what is kind of responsible for the changes. God's knowing this thing inside out. We want to focus on getting people, into those habits that allow them to be successful and effective with their health over time, not just in the office. So,
what would you say sets you apart from other people doing physical therapy or getting adjusted?
It's a bit more holistic. There's a bit of a marrying between chiropractic traditionally and physical therapy kind of on their own. The evidence suggests that it's actually more effective to have both of them working together at the same time for one patient. And so the benefit actually of my background is that those things can come together for one person within the same location. And so there's less kind of juggling, less kind of, going back and forth between providers. It's just a little bit more seamless, a little bit more personable. And we address specifically kind of chronic issues kind of beyond, the point of 6 to 8 weeks where things have healed from an injury or whatever. Things that could potentially set people back from really enjoying an improved quality of life and doing what they really want to do as far as activities. There's a kind of a time gap in there that tends to be a little bit overlooked from what I've seen. So we try and address that part.
So everybody's body is just a little bit different, obviously, and no one size fits all. But are there some general rules that you would say, hey, try to implement some of these things into your life that might be helpful for some people?
Yeah, a lot of people talk about breathing as a way to center themselves mentally, spiritually. It also helps physically. Our bodies actually align better with proper movement, and there's certain motions that directly link to, say, your ability to breathe in, or your ability to breathe out. And so when those movements are timed well, which are skills that can be trained, people tend to decrease their symptoms of pain and stiffness, and they can improve their ability to function even in ways that they don't expect to. So,
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting as a chiropractor, you mentioned breathing and not something physical. And so tell me a little bit about maybe your journey and like the mind-body connection, mind-soul connection, and how that how you use that in your practice.
There was a time in my life when I was in a considerable amount of physical pain, despite, going through an exercise science degree, despite, being a chiropractic patient myself, a physical therapy patient myself. And so I was looking for answers. I was hungry for knowledge and wisdom from the Lord. And He revealed it to me over time, probably over 15 years, kind of failing forward. But it comes down to, in summary, basically doing things movement-wise that work with His design of the body. We obviously can't work against certain things in that situation because it's going to lead to injury and pain. And so there's a certain way to do things that are proper and that actually truly build up the body. And so spiritually too, I think about unity in the church. I think about the body of Christ because Paul, for instance, talks a lot about connectivity, of the human body in his letters to, the churches, in various churches. And so that seemed to be a significant part of his journey with God and experiencing Jesus, kind of the real Jesus. And so I think there's actually a lot that I've learned about the gospel from that perspective, as well as through going through the chiropractic training, etc. There seems to be a really, really amazing parallel between those two areas as a believer, which I'm grateful to kind of be in process in that respect. So,
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that time when you were going through school. You were learning how to move your body correctly, or even how to help people move their body. But then at the same time, you were in pain, or you were seeking for your healing or for some relief.
Yeah, I actually felt very naive and a bit of a hypocrite because I was like, everything that I had been taught, or most of what I'd been taught, actually wasn't really helping me. And so I was, like I shared, hungry for answers. And it was actually to the point where I wasn't sure if I could function normally on a daily basis because of the pain, the self-inflicted pain that I'd gone through and put myself through. And it was my fault entirely, just based on, the way that I was doing things. My mindset was kind of not in the space to receive a whole lot of anything other than what I believed to be true. But at a certain point, I realized that things had to change, and God allowed me to start that journey of basically learning how the body is supposed to work and His design for it, and trusting that more and more. So it's something that's very unique, I think, and that allows me to connect with people and their situations, even within the office, in a way that is very tangible, that people can kind of appreciate and take away something beneficial, like on the spot from.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your journey in faith throughout that whole entire thing. Did you grow up in the church? Were you seeking healing for an instantaneous healing, and then kind of the journey of the walk alongside of this progress that you made?
Yeah, I tend to be pretty impatient generally, and so I wanted, an answer right away. I was expecting, a lot more to happen with some of these other, disciplines of body work, like the physical therapy. I wanted my efforts to count for something, and when they didn't, it just was really frustrating. But over time, it actually forced me to really think through what it means to move well. And it actually forced me to learn with a bit more focus and to dive into things that were really, really important, not necessarily based, just research or academic, but things that actually would really help somebody else, including myself. So it kind of started off very selfish, I would say. And then it turned into being something that I could bless other people with, and it's still that case today, I think, just based on what people have shared.
Yeah. And so you're helping people find relief, you're helping people move well. How do you integrate your faith and business? It seems like there's this story initially of you were trying to ultimately serve yourself, but now it's turned into a life-giving business, really. So tell me a little bit about how you integrate your faith and business.
Yeah, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for him. There were some times where I questioned whether or not I'd ever be able to function the way a normal person would because of the pain. But as far as faith goes, like, Jesus is what is guiding this practice for me. He's the reason why I'm here. He's the reason why this practice exists. And the main thing is that he gains the glory through it in every aspect, in every way. And I think he's using it as a way to grow myself and to kind of pursue him in a world that won't. And so there's always opportunity to kind of keep my love on, so to speak, in amidst circumstances or perspectives that would counter the realities of Christ, even in the physical body. There's a lot of viewpoints that I think tend to be almost idolized in our professions, but the real healer is Christ always. And so, anything that happens from that perspective is really accredited to him. And so I have to remind myself of that daily, that truth. So,
Yeah. So what would success look like in a patient or a person that you're trying to help? What would that look like? And you can kind of break it up into different people, if it's younger or older or different things like that. Or is it about the same, would you say, for each and every person?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is evidence. We work with evidence that points to the reality that Jesus is here and that he wants to redeem us. He wants to save us. It points to the gospel. So that's the ultimate kind of goal, is to point people to Christ through this understanding, through this knowledge. In and of itself, it's not a means to an end. We're not going to live forever, even if we feel good today. And so that I think is primary. But along that journey, it can get messy, but it can also be, there can be many, many moments where seeds can be planted, moving a person along that process and that journey and that experience. And so, it's just a really, really unique place to kind of share the truth, because it's very tangible. Like I've shared before, it's something again, it's further evidence that God really does care for us. He really does love us. He really does have intention in the way that he's made us. That's Psalm 139:14, fearfully and wonderfully made. Like it's so true, especially when you think about the human body and what we have been gifted with. And so those are just things that I love imparting, even if it's not preaching the word to somebody.
So who would you say is an ideal person to go through some of this, either relief, adjustments, and therapy that you provide? It doesn't seem like you just want a one and done kind of like, hey, let me just help you relieve some pain. It seems like definitely a more longer process, unfortunately, but also one that you have to work hard in.
Yeah, I tend to work a lot more with chronic pain situations. As far as age, it tends to be kind of young adult, middle age. But the most important thing is actually a person's mindset going into this. So once we're transparent and they know, what to expect, if they're ready and willing to make a health change or any change, they're willing to kind of take that step, then that would be a great person for this. Kind of like the Christian life, things don't necessarily happen, instantaneously. It takes some time for God to kind of work in us, to grow us, to shape us, to correct us and even rebuke us. And so if there's a person that wants very specific, very relational kind of guidance and focus in this area of their health, then this is a great opportunity for them.
So would you say that even before someone is dealing with chronic pain, that you might want to help them or give an assessment or something along those lines? Tell me along inside the process. Is having chronic pain too far? Can you kind of go back, rewind the clock? Or, tell me a little bit about that process and how you kind of help people.
Yeah, the body is very adaptable. Like I shared before, our bones physically mold to our movement over time. And so as an older individual, there's still opportunity, there's still potential, to influence something like chronic pain in a good direction. There's obviously other things other than, just muscles or joints that we need to consider. And so a health assessment, a detailed health assessment that is, relevant to the person is always necessary. I never do anything blindly with patients. And so that's a key step of the process kind of to begin with. But I would actually recommend a person, if they're interested even, to consider, going to a chiropractor, not necessarily myself, but somebody who is knowledgeable in this area of health, even if they're not in pain, because that's actually a perfect time potentially to really get long-lasting benefit. The beauty with this is there's certain ways to move well and certain ways that, lend itself to more harm. The quicker that a person knows the distinction between the two, the more that they can actually start incorporating it into their daily life as habit. And so even if they had an injury or something traumatic that's out of their control or whatever, they would have that understanding that they can take with them for the rest of their lives. So it's kind of like investing. There's some benefits to start early, and in that respect, I think there might be some similarities there, kind of investing in your health in good ways.
Going back to integrating faith and business, you're very hands-on. You're adjusting people's necks and backs, and also doing some physical therapy with different muscle groups and different bones and different things like that. Tell me about how trust is important, and then also tell me a little bit about how physical supersedes and goes into the spiritual and mental side of things too.
Yeah, communication is key. We never do anything that a patient is uncomfortable doing, obviously. So there's close dialogue. It's not a dictatorship. It's for the patient. This is their time. This is their opportunity to heal and restore and transform. But as far as, there's always a tie-in mind-body connection. We don't focus specifically on the mind so much, even though there is a tie. I have some people that I refer to in kind of more in that realm. But as far as the physical goes, there's certain emotions, there's certain mental states that lend itself well to, again, certain movements based on that breathing that I talked about. And so if that can be kind of timed and coupled as well properly, it lends itself to more holistic benefit movement-wise. So it's interesting. It's really, really interesting the way that kind of works. But I think chiropractic actually works very well with something like counseling potentially. Like I said, you don't have to be in pain to see a chiropractor. It's kind of like investing. You're investing in your health. It's something worthwhile. It's not going to be like, your savior. Only Jesus can do that, but it points to the reality that Jesus is for you. And so if there's somebody that when there are a lot of chiropractors locally, not just myself, feel free to reach out to them and even, see if there's an opportunity to learn more about it for yourself. You might, be an individual where, this would be the career for you. Where you're kind of like-minded in that you want to help people, you want to see them, holistically more well. If you're curious, I would just encourage people to reach out to a chiropractor that they trust, and to really think about, again, as a believer, what does that correct movement actually entail for us as a church, and how might Jesus be actually trying to mature us through not just moving, but actually moving in a way that is working with his design for the church. I think that's something that I've really has opened my eyes as a Christian.
Yeah. And so how would people specifically reach out to you or get in contact with you?
Yeah, my office is at Harvard and 47th, right across from Langenheim Park. It's Tulsa Chiropractic Associates. You can actually contact me through email. It's drhigo, Higo, at tulsaca.com. And the office phone number is 918-622-9655. So that's probably the most reliable ways to reach me during the week.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Really excited.
Yeah, thank you.